G'day everyone and welcome to the weekly Camera Ready Confessions, where I live stream where you connect with me, Zoe Wood, the video confidence coach. I keep doing that, I'm going to move you. Where we help you shine as the obvious choice using your personalized video toolkit, marrying personal branding and video marketing all in the one thing, task action project. Here we are. So welcome everyone to our weekly live stream here on platform of choice, be it LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. I see you there. And I am way too hot. Why are you so hot? My apologies for anyone who is listening. That is way too hot for some reason. I haven't changed anything. All right. I love that I test things and the tests do not work at all. And when we actually go live, nothing works. So thank you everyone for your patience this morning as I've been warming up, getting my makeup on, of course, but mainly, to be perfectly honest, I'm trying to get captions working. So as some of you may have noticed last time in your feeds or just here on the stream, that the captions, which is currently with my secret new project down there, I'll tell you in a bit, is currently not working. So there's been some updates and it's just not working. I've given it a good hard crack and it means that I have to clean everything and start again. So that is annoying and fun. So in that respect, I'm going to have to give me a little bit longer to get the caption set up. So I thank you everyone for your patience and I apologize that I can't have the captions up on screen, which would make it everything accessible and easy. Here we are. So I thank you all for your patience as we fix this and set this up. Going back on to my roster here, thank you for watching or listening to the live stream on platforms, as I mentioned before. Make sure to comment your personal branding or video marketing questions, thoughts, or podcast ideas throughout the live stream. And if you're watching on the replay, hi! Make sure to say hashtag replay squad so I can shout you out after the stream in my social medias, emails, website, all that good stuff. And if you want to find out more information about each live stream that we do, our podcasts, Unboring Your Brand podcast or Vic Podcasters, as well as offers that we have at the Video Confidence Coach, you can find us out at vcc.training. That website again is vcc.training. Before I would like to continue, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which I conduct my business. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to face discrimination and disadvantage due to our country's colonial past. I stand with them in their fight against injustice, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And especially if you are catching this live or in the recent live window, Survival Day is coming up on Monday. So that is somehow still a public holiday in Australia. And if you have not heard, Clothing the Gaps, which is a Indigenous run business down on Naarm, so in Melbourne, is running a campaign of Not a Date to Celebrate, which, as you can guess by the acknowledgement of country, but also I wholeheartedly believe, especially with the charities that we support, which is JIRA and Wadawurrung, Wadawurrung Co-op Foundation, of which you can find the details down in the description below. It still baffles me that we are still the only country, Australia I'm talking about, is still the only Commonwealth country who celebrates the day that we got invaded. And Australia Day has not been a long-running standing or tradition, by the way. It was generated because we needed a sense of nationalism after we said goodbye to England. Not fully goodbye, because of course we're still part of the Commonwealth, but all that to be expected. I have my thoughts, I have my things, but that is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about video marketing, personal branding, sorry. So if you are wanting to sign the petition for a date not to celebrate, they're currently at around about 85,000 signatures. They're wanting to get to 100,000 signatures to bring to government and to Parliament. I'm not saying it's going to change automatically and it's not going to change dramatically. But I think realistically, as a nation, we're just ready to move on, ready for change. That would be nice. But that is another discussion we'll have another time. It's not political. It is human. I digress. So if you want to find out more details, make sure you check out in the link below where I'll have the links to the Not a Date to Celebrate campaign run by Clothing the Gaps, which is a petition where you sign and we'll make some change. Maybe not by this survival day, but hopefully the next one. And coming back to Video Confidence Coach, what I wanted to check in on was the quarterly focus that we have at the moment at Video Confidence Coach is our quiz, of which I'm currently working on and launching probably as of next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you are signed up to our email list, make sure you keep an eyes peeled in your inbox. If you're not on our email list, make sure you sign up because I have all the good details there. Again, that email list you can find everywhere, and I do mean everywhere, at vcc.training. Just vcc.training. And yes, that is the website domain. It's not .com, not .au, it's .training, because that's what I do. And that's where all the details are. So looking at the stuff that we've done as of late. So recently we have the Unboring Your Brand podcast for those who are who are new. And recently, as of Wednesday, we released episode 95, Why Your Website Is Your Priority. This is still part of our summer series because yes, in Australia, even though, especially down in the south of Australia, it may not feel like summer. No, I can tell because I'm not sweating. It is definitely summer down here. So it's part of our summer series, finishing up. I should probably check. I think it's finishing up. Episode 95 was probably the end of our summer series, or maybe next week. I'm going to find out. I think it's next week. But where we talked about and reminding a very popular episode we had about why your website is your priority when it comes to not just your marketing efforts, but decisions that you make when communicating to your audience. Your website is where you go first because you have full control over it and everything goes from there. Woo! So make sure you listen to or watch that episode on YouTube, or you can listen to everything on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And looking at Vic Podcasters, which is a community that we run to grow your podcast for beginners and new hosts. We last week released, was it? No, I think this week, we released our monthly check-in episode, which is about burnouts, bandwidth, and big dreams. So we have a lot of plans for the year. We have recently launched our new live stream Q&A, which will be on March 26th. No, I don't think I can do this. On March 20th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time or Melbourne time. The podcast theme, the live stream theme, I should say, the webinar theme is Scrappy Podcast Sprint. So we're going to have a live Q&A where we discuss everything about getting out of podcast burnout, especially for people who have been running podcasts for a while, and how to do either guerrilla podcasting or quick turnaround podcasting to allow you to create podcasts efficiently and consistently, but also without taking too much of your time to get your message out there. Recently, we ran a poll, and I'm scrolling down to look now. Recently, we ran a poll a couple of days ago, which was, what is your biggest podcast blocker? And we had 3 options just to make it easy for people. We had tech, time, and confidence. And I didn't expect confidence really to get a whole lot in there, but I wanted to throw it in there just in case, because of course, video confidence culture is what I do. But I was surprised to see that not many people had a block regarding tech, because usually that's where people go to. That's kind of where people streamline to, is usually their tech regarding podcasting. But now it was interesting to see that at the moment it's about 86%, and the poll will close in a couple of more days, that the big block for everyone in the community on LinkedIn and on Facebook is time. So that is why I'm happy to let you know that we're running the Scrappy Podcast Sprint. You can check it out on humanitix.com.au, or you can register via the links in the groups. So make sure you check out the links below to join that event. That is coming up. Yes, I'm aware it's in March and we're currently in January, but we are preparing ahead of time to make sure we cover all our bases. Make sure we don't leave anyone out. If you want to know more about the Vic Podcasters, check it out at vcc.training/Vic-podcasters. Now, moving on to today's live stream. So I have got a couple of community questions. When I say a couple, I've got a fair few, because we've had a fair few people reach out to us over the past little bit with questions regarding video marketing, personal branding. Is that a shock? No, that's not a shock. But I've collected all of these, and now that I'm answering them. So the best way to put this is, when people ask you questions, try and put them in a list. I have personally found this as a tool that I use all the time. It is really, really helpful for me. I'm going to tell you now, it is so helpful for me because it allows you to collect them and answer them in this type of format, like on a live stream, for questions that you've received, either very detailed, very nuanced, or not so detailed and nuanced, but allows you to answer them in a public forum where people, because if one person is asking a question, I can guarantee you there's 10 more people wanting to know the answer to that question. And then either they don't have time, they are either too unconfident to ask, or they're not sure who to ask regarding that question. And if you have the answer there, provide it in a format like this where people can both listen, watch, and really understand basically what you're saying. Then here we are. Welcome to the waterfall technique, flywheel technique of content creation, which is why we are here and what we are doing today. So I'm going to start off with some robust community questions where we got into the weeds and some details with some people, and I'll walk you through that. So the questions that I've got in all cases, and I'm going to pose these as episodes to the Unboring Your Brand podcast. So if you do hear me say that, just FYI, that's what's happening. Is the questions that we've had is, how do you decide which feedback to take on board? Which is happening a lot nowadays, and I'm going to key you into why. And how do you cope with the fear of negative feedback when putting your videos online for the world to see? I know, isn't it fun? Great. So I will be answering those questions in a podcast format and making sure that I disseminate those answers to the world. I'm going to do my best to edit my videos. I'm saying that for both yours and mine benefit, because I do have a tendency of putting all the effort into preparing and recording, and then I don't do the last two bits, which is producing and publishing and getting it out there. I'm smart, I promise. Why are you still hot? My apologies, I'm looking at the microphone now, and I've got a ton of questions. So I'm looking at my list now, and I have so many questions. From a bunch of people. Now, I stress that I did get this email in a Instagram DM recently about when I mention people's names at the start of my podcast, at the start of answering questions on social media or on my website, I usually lead with a name or when providing context. So say, for example, I'll just pick one at random. So I got a question from Tash, and the question essentially was, what's the first piece of content I should post to introduce myself? Like, what, I know that I need to say something first because I'm ready. What do I say first? And the reason I use people's names is to give context so you can understand someone's point of view of the context they're bringing into a question, because a question is nothing without the context behind it. And when you answer a question online, when you answer a question to your particular audience, you are building in a lot of assumption. And that is going to happen no matter what, because you are an expert in your field. You are the professional in your field. And that is going to include some pre-established knowledge or context. What I do with these names, and again, I want to stress to the person who was asking that question, was that I give them names randomly from a bucket. Like I don't actually use the real names because that implies like confidentiality. I do my best not to give away too much personal information, especially if we've had a private conversation via my Disco calls. Again, links in the description, or via DMs or via emails, because I don't want to give away too much context. Like, I don't want to give away too much of someone's personal information, especially when you're reaching out to me for help. You don't want me to gossip and blab about your personal struggles or personal branding issues all over the internet. But also, especially when I have these conversations with people, I also make sure that I get their permission to share them as a case study, share them as an example. And Or I give them the option saying, hey, do you mind if stripping all your details away, can I use this as a learning opportunity for others like you? And I'd say I've only had 2 people in my entire business career of using that tactic ever say, nah, don't, nothing, never mention nothing. Because most people want to help others. Most humans want to help other humans. So in those moments and in that type of situation, I do my best to give a name to to give a situation to happening. Also, it helps me remember, like, okay, this was about this person. But also it enables the person listening and or watching to be able to put themselves in that person's shoes and their experience. So, for example, for Tasha's situation, that they are ready. They are so ready. They are on feral levels of ready, but they are so like, where do I even start? They are seeing what other people who are 5, 10, 15 years in the industry ahead of them, and they're feeling they're feeling like a tiny little amoeba in this full pond of big fish. And they just don't know where to start. They've been doing their thing. They're in the health and wellness field, and the work that they do specifically does center around does focus a lot on food. Now, of course, I'm not giving away too many details here, but essentially, what I recommended, or what I said to them was, okay, putting yourself in your customer's shoes. Now, I did recommend them like, hey, do a lot of thinking about what your customer wants to hear and what they want to see. But with your first video, you are still testing the waters. You are still trying things out. Once you're at like 10, 15 videos, then you're like, okay, I've got a system, I've got a process. I'm still like, I know who my audience is. You've had a bit more communication and a bit more vibrancy to what you're doing. But in this type of situation, putting them in their shoes of, you've seen other people do this, take this first video as an opportunity, not with a, hi, I'm Tash. Trust me. Lead with a story. Lead with a story of someone you've worked with. You can do a quick, what we like to call hook. Pull out the section that you would use to either talk to a friend, maybe talk to a family member. And what I like to do, especially for Tasha's situation, is lean in and act as if you're dropping the biggest, like, juiciest piece of gossip. That allows you to, like, especially when you've got limited time and let's bring you on a story, for example. A tactic I like to use, especially with people who are still starting out and still figuring this out, is giving them exercises that they can do to kind of beef up their confidence. Now, imagine you're in a family member's kitchen. Envision them in your mind, and they are busy. They are cooking multiple meals. They've got things on the stoves, things in the oven. They are preparing food. They are going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Almost nauseating. And you are trying to tell them about a really juicy piece of gossip that you have either stumbled across or that you were a part of. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to stop being busy for 2 seconds so that you can tell them what's going on. And instead of shouting, instead of waving your hands, instead of physically getting up to shake them and go, listen to me, what's the sentence, what's the question that gets them really engaged and makes them go, he said what now? Or makes them go, what? So for example, we were discussing about the story that she wanted to tell, and how the thing that had this person reach out to her was because Tasha's client's baby, who is just beginning to form sentences and put little words together, said, "Why is mummy so fat?" And of course, there's a whole lot of baggage that goes along with that. But you can imagine sitting there, again, a family member, whichever one you like the look of, is pacing back and forth. And you might be crossing your arms because it's a bit of a self-conscious thing. But what do I do when the baby calls me fat? And you can see again, in your mind, this is all an imaginary exercise, that, what? That is your hook. And especially in a video like that, that is a very clear hook. And of course you can play around with these, you can experiment with these. That's the point of having multiple videos, and especially honing your craft and practicing, because these things are going to take time. You're not going to know everything off the bat. So taking this time to just pause, sit, and think about things before you do them is usually quite helpful. So I just did that full thing for Tash, and probably shouldn't in this example. And we're still in the intro and it's been 20 minutes, sorry. I've got a strict hierarchy of things that I do. But ultimately that is like one of the questions that I get. And the reason that I like to put names onto them is to, again, give you that context, give you that understanding that this is a real human being. I'm not using their real names because confidentiality and all that. But I feel like we need to give, especially stories that we're telling and examples that we're providing, we want to give people the confidence that they know what they're doing, that they're hearing it from another person and they're not just getting AI slop. Because if you're on the internet at the moment, AI is everywhere. What is your BFM? And I've been listening to a lot of people that I enjoy following, not just because they are influencers, but because I enjoy, yes, I agree with what they say mostly, but I honestly want to follow humans. I care about humans. I don't care about AI outputs or drivel. AI is a tool that is meant to help people do their work, not take over their jobs. And I have plenty of feelings about this, but we're not going to continue about this, are we? What we're going to do is we're going to move straight on to the first episode that we are going to record, and I'm going to see if I can get it done in time. But I want to thank you all for your patience. Ooh, one thing I did forget. So in the screen there, in the caption section, where I should technically have my captions, because if they worked, they would be there. You can see a little tool that I have made. It is a postcard that I as having as a lead magnet. So FYI, if you do click the link below and you do click this to find more details about it, it is a lead magnet for me, but it's ultimately a tool that is really simple, really easy to use. And I've sent a batch of test postcards like this to people, and they say, I've got it near my webcam every time, I've got it near my phone every time, I've got it in my Go kit, and I'm really thankful for everyone who has sent their little thank you messages regarding this. Again, it's just a piece of cardboard. It's a postcard, but I wanted to give people a tool that's really easy to use, really simple. But if you want to find out more details, make sure you click the link below to find out more. I will have it on the screen in the caption section until I figure out what to do with my captions soon. But in the meantime, let's go take an ad break from Zoe, and I'll see you on the other side for an episode of the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Then they stop what they're doing in their corporate careers, have the capital and energy and time to then move over into a small business. And their focus is very much, I need to make money now, I need to make money now, I need to make money now. Where the desperation doesn't really come across very well when it comes to networking, as you can probably imagine. And then with the people who are in that age and demographic, once they find their people, they very much stick to them. And when you are a new person coming into those cliques, it's very hard to get a vibe of some people. And say, for example, there's plenty of cliques that I am definitely not a part of, despite the fact that I've been networking in Geelong pretty consistently and sometimes excessively for over 14 years by this point. And I'm still not in a fair few of them. So when it comes to those nuances, it's a case of knowing when to give up on groups that you have not exactly no interest to be a part of, but it's clearly that they're not going to benefit you. You know what's really fun? Asking someone for some feedback and then realizing everybody's got an opinion. Welcome to the Unboring Your Brand episode where we talk about asking for feedback and opinions and getting them regardless. Breathing in. And yes, you might be saying that some of those opinions are gold, but most of the time, some of those opinions are garbage. I'm saying that with love, by the way. So some of it may sound helpful in the moment, but especially depending on who you get this feedback from, can send you on an existential spiral that will take days to recover. So let's go through a quick mental checklist that you can keep in mind when asking someone for feedback and allow you to keep your mind and your mojo intact. I'm pausing a lot this episode. This Unboring Your Brand question and conversation has come from Kylie. So hello, Kylie. It was good. It was awesome to have a chat with you. Make sure you follow up my emails and we'll have another chat later on. But these are like one of many questions that we had during our disco call. So make sure you check out the link in the description to check out your own disco call where you can have conversations like this, but all directed about you and your focus. So also, quick reminder that if you are listening to the podcast, you can also watch my face and my expressions on YouTube and the website vcc.training/unboring/podcast. And you can also, if you are watching this podcast, you can also listen to it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts under Unboring Your Brand podcast. Now, let's begin with section 1. So, with this little mental checklist that you're creating in your head, now, of course, that's another thing to think about, but checking out the show notes below, I'll give you a quick thing that you can copy and paste, put in your second brain, put in your diary, put in your calendar. Again, somewhere where you can find it later when it comes to thinking about your feedback and when you're asking for it. Here is what you need to keep in mind. So, first off, check your sources. So, when you are asking for feedback, you are in a position where you want to either change what you are doing regarding your personal brand or your content strategy or your brand or the way that you're marketing yourself, the way that you're putting your message out there for your audience to take on board and make changes for themselves. Or make changes for themselves by hiring you, hopefully. And you're asking for feedback, usually from people that you have access to. So this feedback can be asking your audience, but this feedback could also be asking your friends and family. It could be asking other peers in your industry, other collaborators, other competitors. Yes, I have talked about on the podcast about how those two can definitely be the same thing. And I still wholeheartedly believe that, but also in the moment, especially when you get subpar feedback, it can definitely feel different. So when it comes to checking your source, who exactly are you giving this power? Because again, that's what we're doing here. We are giving them the power to give us both critiques, but also a little bit of a way of sugarcoating how we're feeling. We want a little bit of reassurance with that feedback, but we also want to know what we can change and what we can update. Like I have business mentors that I regularly reach out to for sessions, but also just regular chats or just getting their feedback on something. And when you're running a business and when you're running a brand, you can forget things. I forget things all the time. And when I am so fixated on a project or fixated on getting a certain outcome for someone, I can kind of miss the forest from the trees and not really do my basic fundamentals. So having someone outside of your control, outside of your remit, outside of your little comfort bubble can be useful in those situations. but thinking about how it helps you and how it serves you in your personal brand context, because that's where we are, because you're listening to the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Here we are. So in the purview and in the permit of your personal brand, who are you asking feedback from? Ideally, it would be your clients, your current clients, or your potential clients, or maybe even your past clients, people that you have worked with or are about to work with. Maybe even a mentor, someone who understands both sides of what's going on, not just the message that you're putting out there to help the people that you want to help, but also they understand the back end of what's going on, not just in your mind and your mindset, but also how you run your business and the processes, and maybe even the money that's going on. Asking feedback from that type of source has a bit more weight and a bit more gravitas to then a stranger on the internet making comments about your weight when you ask them for feedback about your brand or message. I'm not naming names. Or is your feedback coming from, and the source of this feedback, coming from your cousin Barry, who has never run a business but has thoughts of running a business? Yes, we have plenty of those in our lives. When it comes to these people, and I'm not saying that you should forego Barry or forego any of those people that may not have the experience that you need to get feedback, because having that honest truth from someone who couldn't give less of a shit about what you were working on can be quite eye-opening. And being able to prioritize that feedback from people who are in your industry, who understand your goals and your audience, may be slightly higher up in your, when you've got all this feedback swirling in your head, the decisions that you make, the actions that you take. Where someone like Barry, yes, they've got cool, honest, raw thoughts, but they also feel like they know everything, and everything that they say they feel is gospel. You may put that slightly lower on the totem pole. No, that is the wrong thing to say there. You might put it slightly lower on your priority list of things to action when they say it. So, a little rule of thumb that I like to put in for my own point is, if you wouldn't swap lives with them, don't build your personal brand off their advice. I'll say that again for those in the back. When asking for feedback, if you wouldn't swap your life with theirs, do not build your personal brand off their advice. Yeah. The second thing to think about when it comes to seeking out feedback from people is filtering it through your own values. So when you are asking for feedback, you're asking for people's positioning, you're asking for people's thoughts, but also that comes with their set of values and what they think is your priority and what they believe that you should be doing with your life and with your choices. But when it comes to those actions that they recommend for you to take, and that's what they're going to be at the end of the day, they're going to be actions and tasks to improve, update, change, mold, change whatever you're doing. Maybe it's an MVP, so a minimum viable product. That is usually the fastest, easiest, quickest, dirtiest thing that you can get out there to the public to get feedback from all of these sources that we're discussing, that you can then change to fit the people who actually need your help. That is a key factor here, and that's why sources are important. The people who actually are going to benefit from what you do. And then the second thing is to filter those through your own values. The feedback that aligns with your vision for what you want your personal brand to do, what you want your business to do, what you want to accomplish in the world. And if these actions, these tasks, these changes are asking you to be something or someone that you're not, it's got to be a no. And because you're building a personal brand, not a costume, it has to reflect these internal values that you have. Even though a personal brand is that professional outward side of you, the message that you're putting out there to the world, it is still a, aspect of you. So if the feedback that you're getting feels a bit icky, I want you to trust that feeling. And may sit in your stomach like, a bit of dodgy takeaway from last night. I am definitely feeling that at the moment. I want you to take that opportunity to actually think about, does this feedback align with my values? A good example I have for you is recently I had a chat with some lovely people who run a mentoring conglomerate. It was a bit hard to kind of get a hold of them in the sense of what they were actually doing. But turns out they were providing mentoring services for people who did products, specifically consumable products, and wide world distribution of consumable products. Now, as you can imagine, Zoe, the video confidence coach, I provide digital products and services. I have no need for products just yet. Of course, except for my product, which is a postcard of the camera color corrector card. That's a product, but that's a piece of cardboard that I postcard to people because I love them. I have no need for consumables. And I had to make it clear, and also the way that they were speaking. Now, again, I'm not saying anything against you. It was more building an empire, needing to, the Uberification, the Airbnb-ification, the move fast, break things type mentality, where personally, that does not align with my values. And within the call, I made it quite clear. Obviously, there's a lot of things that went right with the call, but I made it quite clear that I have no interest in building a empire and then selling it off to the highest bidder. Some people want that. Some people want to build their life like that, and that's okay. That is not for me, though. And I had to be very clear. So the feedback that they were giving me, especially when they started going on about how, you as a coach, you've only got a limited time, you've only got limited things that you can offer people. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I've got limited availability. That's just the part of being human. I want to help and serve as many people as I can, which is why I do live streams, podcasts, and many other methods to be able to help as many people as I can, speak at events, workshops, all that good things. But I want to help and serve people, which in turn usually means some one-on-one attention. And I'm okay with that. That is my values, and I'm okay with that. I don't need to build empire. So in that, the feedback that I got from them, I put through that filter of my values, but also checking my sources. The third thing that I want you to keep in mind when you're asking for feedback is spotting patterns. If one person says either in a comment on a Instagram video or maybe a YouTube video, and this can be a complete stranger, by the way, or maybe someone you know, they may say, hey, your videos are too casual, or you mumble too much, or I don't understand you. Sure. Give them, reply to them, always engagement. Thank you for reaching out. But if 10 people say, hey, you're mumbling, or if 10 people say, hey, I like the way that you clearly explain things, you just might need to make sure you punctuate your end of your sentences, that is a pattern because you've got more people and you've got more results. It may be across different platforms, but it helps you see the patterns of multiple people saying the same thing. So follow your vibe, follow your gut on that front when it comes to seeing multiple people saying the same thing. And it may not be something you agree with. It may not be something that you trust the source, or maybe something that you, again, may not filter through your values. But if a lot of people on different platforms and different areas of your business or the different services that you're providing say the same thing, might be a thing that you might need to look into and change. Sometimes that happens. And sometimes you can be so stubborn that you don't want to admit it. Like somebody I know. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that's me. But I do my best to listen to my audience, listen to you, and do my best to make changes where need be. And I've got a note here to say, look for trends in what people are saying, not just saying to you, mind you. Feedback can be very broad, and sometimes, especially with your customer, avatar or your audience that you're trying to get people on board with, they may not necessarily be very talkative. They may not be the type of people to fill in surveys or be very direct when communicating with you. So trying to pick up on signals that are out there in the communities that you are a part of, specifically niched communities that you are a part of, either online or in person, trying to pick up those trends. There may not be feedback directed at you, but if you can pick up those patterns and start implementing that into the way that you communicate, it can help you be clearer, get the point across, maybe get people to take an action, which results in you getting money. Because you don't necessarily have to be the loudest voice in the room to make a change. And if it's a one-off comment, it's okay. It's okay. If you're receiving that one-off comment a lot, then it's sometimes going to happen. And especially when you are starting out, when you're not getting a lot of traction. And I'm not saying that you're always going to get you're going to grow a million dollar follow account, because to be honest, followers aren't really meaning much in our current algorithmic AI algorithmic state. It's not necessarily worrying about followers, people who are subscribing to your content, because that actually doesn't happen as much anymore. It's mainly about your engagement rate, about each individual piece of content that you put out, that people are responding to it with watching it all the way through. Are they saving it? Are they sharing it with someone else? Are they commenting on it? Those are the type of factors that you really need to focus on. And if it's just one comment mentioning something minute about yourself, and you're mainly focusing on it because you believe that about yourself, that's okay. Step out, put your phone down. Breathe for a second. But if it's something that you don't care about, you're just going to have it fade into the background. And it's not going to be controlling your life as much as some other aspects of what we do can do. The next point. When it comes to your feedback, we have checked the source of where that feedback is coming from. We've filtered it through your personal values of your personal brand, but also your values as a human being. You can now spot patterns. If more than one person is saying it in your communities, or one person is saying it to you, then it's probably something that you might need to change, even if it's something that you don't particularly appreciate. That's okay. You can slowly make changes. The next thing that I want you to think about, or keep in your mental checklist, is, are these people your audience, your ride or die, your super fans, or are they just passing through? When it comes to feedback, especially from someone outside of your niche or outside of the people that you are there to help and to serve, it may not be as relevant. Now, of course, that goes back to your sources, but all right, so an example is receiving a comment on a post. For example, if you are talking about something to do with gardening and you receive a opinion post from someone who says they're a lawyer, doesn't mean that they are, but someone who says they're a lawyer, and they have an opinion on the way that you plant your petunias, you can appreciate the comment, maybe even reply with a comment and say thank you, but that may not be your core demo, and that is okay. Again, we're going back to the sources, but if you actually keep the focus on the people that you are there to help, and you may have multiple customer avatars, you may have a very large group of people that you help, which again, knowing who those people are is incredibly helpful, which is why check out my tool, WTF is your niche. It's a very useful tool that I put a lot of people through. You spend 20 minutes and you get a really clear idea of who your target audience is that you can make decisions about. Highly recommend. In those particular moments, when thinking about the source of that feedback, you need to think about, are those people there for the long run? Are they actually going to stick around to see the changes that you're enacting from the feedback that they give you? Or are they coming in, vomiting their opinion up, going, and then leaving? Because that happens a lot, especially on the internet, and especially from white men. I do not say that with love. But people who believe they are always right are going to make sure that you feel like you're always wrong. So in those moments, think about where the source of this feedback is coming from. Did you ask for it? Filtering it through your own values and spotting the patterns And then thinking about, is this feedback coming from someone who isn't necessarily even a super fan, but someone who is going to stick around to see the changes that you are going to make from their feedback? Or are they coming, vomiting up their feedback and then leaving? Because building a brand is not for everyone, but knowing who you're building it for and doing it the right way is a good use of your time and a good use for, once you've asked for feedback, to actually utilize that feedback correctly and take actions and make changes from it. And the last thing I want to check in with you regarding this mental checklist, again, the details can be found in the description, where I will have a show notes page, which will have a nice breakdown for this so that you can copy and paste and put it wherever you need to. The last thing that I want to mention, again, with this little mental checklist, now, of course, I've gone into great detail because I want to help you, but in the meantime, with this feedback is ultimately, does this feedback help you grow or does it shrink you? Does this feedback that you are asking for help you grow or does it shrink you? Because constructive feedback isn't presented in a certain way, even though it can be. It's not given a shit sandwich, which is a compliment thing, a harsh thing, and then a compliment again. I like to do that sometimes when I'm giving constructive feedback to someone who I know is very sensitive at that moment. Not all the time, of course, but sometimes they're a bit sensitive in that moment. You might need to compliment and put in a bit of a shit sandwich for them. But constructive feedback, actively putting context around why you're giving feedback, which is the big ding 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 here. Is it going to push you to improve? Are you going to feel empowered by the feedback and the constructive feedback that you are given? Even if it hurts or stings a bit, it's going to be useful. But if the feedback is telling you that you're a tall poppy and we need to cut you down, or that you're getting too big for your britches, sit down. Is that stuff you really want to be hearing? Is that stuff you need to be hearing? Because especially a lot of the people that I work with are people who have heard this their entire lives. No, I do not need to sit down, Janice. I need to help the people that I need to help. I need to swing my arms around. I need to wear crazy colors and makeup because I want to be seen by the people that I need to help because they need my help. And I don't need you trying to squish me down because it benefits you. And if this constructive criticism makes you, if this constructive criticism, because again, it gets to reach that bar first, if it makes you want to delete your accounts and live in the bush, then you don't need to take it on board. Yes, some constructive criticism may bruise your ego. It's gonna hurt, but that's okay. Bad feedback bruises your energy, while good feedback can just bruise your ego. And that thing bounces back easily. It's not a bone, it's a muscle. So going back over everything we've talked about today, when you are looking for feedback, ask, check the source. Who is this coming from? Filter this feedback and actions, very importantly the actions, through your own values. Spot the patterns. Are you finding it from more and more people? Again, checking that source and making sure that the filtering the values through that. Is the audience there to see the change that they are asking for? Or are they just passing through? And ultimately, does this feedback help you grow or shrink you down? Because at the end of the day, is this feedback helping you or hindering you? And to wrap up today, and thank you everyone who has stood by this podcast today, feedback is ultimately a tool. It's not a rule, it's a thing that you ask to improve yourself, improve the things that you're creating to better help the people that you want to serve. So you don't have to implement every piece of feedback that you ever get. You are not an itty bitty titty committee. You not work for the council. And if you do, my hat's off to you. You have a very hard job. You don't have to implement everything. You can be thankful for the feedback. You can be grateful for the feedback, but you don't need to live in the feedback. And once you learn to trust your gut, you can ultimately feel smarter, but you are growing with experience. And growing a personal brand or doing video marketing is going to require some experience. Thank you for listening to the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Make sure to rate this episode 5 stars, or the podcast in general, I wouldn't mind. Or if you don't rate the podcast, that's fine. I want you to share this with someone who has been struggling with feedback. I want you to share this with a business bestie who's been struggling with maybe the feedback that you're giving them, or maybe that they're just struggling with asking for feedback. Hopefully this episode makes it easier and less scary to ask for that feedback now. See you next time, next week especially. We've got a doozy for you. Investing on other people's more established podcasts is always a great place to start, and allows you to, take some risks of engaging with other people, engaging with other business owners and other people in your particular niche. And then in that opportunity, you can build up your confidence on having interviews, talking with people, being the go-to person in your particular niche, the authority. You're building that authority. You can be guests on other podcasts. And then after those, say 2 to 3 years, you're comfortable about how your business is going. You're comfortable about the cash flow that you've got going, and you've got the hour or 2 a week that you could invest in, starting your own podcast. Then great, awesome, beautiful. Because you've already practiced with other people. You've already know what you're on about. You're very clear about who you're trying to communicate and who this podcast is for. Then you can start a podcast then. Awesome. So whatever plan or whatever option you want to go or do going forward, a podcast is a great opportunity, and it's also not something that you need to hold forever. Like marketing and trialing new things in your business, you're not always going to stick with it forever. Thank you everyone for joining me on this week's Camera Ready Confessions. Thank you to all the comments below, and I am doing my best to answer them in between the ad sections, and if not, I'll make sure to answer them at the end of the stream today. I want to thank everyone who's in the hashtag replay. If you're in the replay squad, hashtag replay. I look forward to seeing what you have to say and doing my best to answer the comments. My apologies if my mic has been all a bit hot or you've been hearing a bit of crackling in my voice. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I still need to get this guy to where I need it to be. We're still working on it. Thank you all for your patience on that front. If you miss any part of the stream, or you can watch or listen to the whole live stream on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook is less than 30 days. But ultimately, you can find the replay at any time on my website, because websites are your priority, in the show notes, via the vcc.training/camera ready confessions, or just click the link in the description. That's a whole lot easier, I must say. Thank you everyone for joining me, and remember, shine as the obvious choice using your personalized video toolkit. That's what we're here for. Always happy to ask your questions. We'll always be happy to answer your questions around personal branding or video marketing. Bye.